What is going on, folks, and English language fanatics and that of writing too, and such as myself and everybody else in the world. And so here at the Multi-Faceted channel, the home for breakthroughs, the haven for all that is avant-garde and crazy unusual. Also, originality is up to snuff, and by up to snuff means that when something is seriously reaching the designated point of the fulfilled desire, there is where you say that something is up to snuff. And today, a new sense of contribution to the very ProbityBLS community and its aspect of growth, a sense of power into making the sturdiest or most powerful platform, creative writing, and of course critical thinking, all looped around, mingled, even coexisting with philosophy. Today goes for a section or something I wrote back in 2020, and that is Geopolitics in Philosophy Part 1. Can you see the date here? Okay, and my point of view is simple as to why I chose geopolitics to philosophy being represented that way, due to the mass or big crawl or march of the world into one direction. And that is the politically unified protocols of marching down this sense of unifications, all put together by mainly powerful countries and hence powerful agendas. And also why I chose this title, specifically philosophy, for it's the voice of every spoken language of the world. Mentalities, mindsets, even the deepest conscience of one's arbitrary token of thoughtfulness and mindfulness too. Is just a damn philosophical standpoint after all. So, without further ado, if you pay attention to the first lines here, or still this mainly long paragraph, and it's just an introduction to the definition of geopolitics according to a philosophical point of view, which will be explained. Before we start, please go ahead and read this article, ProbityBLS.com, just go through it, it's one hell of a read. If it's too complex, just head back here and check out my explanation. So, as to why this piece is written in the first place is simply for me to have thought that geopolitics was and will always be hemmed in or troubled in and it's such a quagmire or a predicament. Why? Because the definition of philosophy still appeals to the demonic resolutions and exposes geopolitics polymath geniuses flat out humiliated. I mean, completely busted. It gets them, sorry. Yet the world isn't seeing this as it's happening with a great deal of momentum, and the world and its very Zeitgeist, or sort of to say, where each civilization's marched and is still marching its way onto the onto this charisma we're living in today, and throughout the unknown, despite like the caliber and the disposition that makes those certain civilizations feel as though trapped and unable to connect with one another or even coexist for survival. And so as eventually it's with the extermination of such agendas of unifications above all exercised forcefully. And by the way, you can see where all my words are coming from. They come from these very lines here as well. So take it easy on the complex sense of writing. It's all been explained in here. And so these last lines, if you read well, you'll grasp or understand as to why civilizations are practically troubled by the flow and such world's destruction that is overdriving any vim or vigor, or like a foundation of all that's been built upon long time ago. Yet in modern time, it's inevitable for that sense of change, for it's almost naive, folks, you know what I'm saying here? All that nonsense of a better community and its utopian beliefs, or all that about utopia is just simply topped by so far, and by like nearby the proportion of the unifications that whatever and however they appear, good or bad, it's just coming from one state of mind. And although exposed in this first part, Geopolitics in Philosophy, we're here to say that any demonic resolutions are simply exposed by philosophy's eternal weapons of decency, above all for the public to see, and make them realize despite the paradoxical situations we're living in today. And another point, and there is the philosophical point of view of letting go, or pissing away from something. So letting go of what is happening in the world in the form of a revivification, like reviving one's state of mind throughout the society that is just helpless in making that designated change of a better community, and a utopian belief or platform, sort of to say. And folks, here, reviving the sense of control underneath the caliber of a united world, by that, what geopolitics is doing to the world, or the sense of unifications no matter what, or any cost, and then any ideas or keys to this letting go is throughout the standards made by any civilizations, originality, and their authenticity into doing something, or this one we live in precisely, Those standards are the exaggerating benevolence towards the ultimatum or threat that is being made politically so very demonically. Herein, the point says, or at least to philosophy, is that the key to getting along this quagmire is to have that autonomous or independent disposition, or characterization of keeping away and fighting with the very backbone, or power that's been established by those benevolent standards of decent and gentle and meek qualities, like this little line here. I'll get to it. Certain corner which coaxes credibility out of the spiritual toy that is humanity. The fact that a fate is more likely to be drawn by its owner and not an intruder. And the issues in such criminally conceited recognitions of the geopolitically unified world in spite of the conglomerate and subsidiary agendas. I hope it's been clear enough, as there are always those figures which work their way through toil or hard work which sometimes doesn't seem to pay off. So it's getting devious and more demonic. So that work doesn't seem to pay off or work, all because being jammed by a devious and too brazen to be subtle. And my point here is, technically speaking, whatever conglomerate subsidiary power, I mean those intruders, when they get around a decent community, they rule the world geopolitically groovy or trendy in a sense of regime that have been criminalizing humanity even implicitly. And this goes for the last conglomerate or subsidiary part I mentioned being dirty and controlled. And so obviously the article might look small and everything, but it is in fact quite big as to the proportion of the subjective philosophy in this geopolitical respect. So it's one hell of a read, folks, in case this video is being blurry or too ambiguous to relate to. And so after this last paragraph here, in which I read from directly quoting, and the drab or dull relaxation upon other toils is the spell itself that gradually hurts the upper shoulder of all time. And I hereby to state, folks, that an injured society or civilization is here to eventually join this modern geopolitical march of today's world, and still fights, like barely, with the decency created long time ago upon counterfeited or fake premises, or the promise that is being indoctrinated. And so indoctrination it is, which will be, folks, beaten down by still this designated society that's just injured but won't join the global forces. In fact, it'll be like the underdog, as in imitating the sense of power or prosperity only as, listen up, a philosophical stepping stone. By stepping stone I mean ataba. Like a period of time which, on the other hand, needs a damn sturdy and powerful dependency from such criminalization of humanity for filthy agendas. As the underdog, or the figures that fight a bit hidden, vigilante, however, only because the situation we're all in and throughout thus is how zenith or major success can finally be granted, because philosophy does bring the face of lies down eventually. It's here, as you can see too. Check this out. Valuably obvious truths. They are genuinely philosophical and do incline to cross-examine and impeach geopolitics as the sheer factoid or fact of the universal criminalizations of the unified worlds. And I continue here. When philosophy gets in and drags down the faces of lies, truths become barely gauged or measured. See? Because a fractured society which built an ungentrified dissipation upon its feeble or weak platform of decency, severity of rising above the flow of the organizations of crimes. See what I use here? I use the term ungentrified, as in poor turned to rich kind of a status. All of a sudden, I mean. Plus the word dissipation or disappearance, only to try to say that that fractured society switching from poor to rich, while deeply feeble or weak, is in fact being exposed almost happily ever after to subversion. See here, for example, played out and rather more subversively, ending up too frail or winding up too frail to get around a once originally unified outlook. And by that I mean their very original outlook as a civilization that started over a utopian belief. And by outlook here, I mean the very first idea which still held on to the marginalized proportion of not joining forces with the alpha organization, or this one, evil incarnate. Man, they're even ugly in caricature too. Look at that. And also for this designated fractured society we speak of, is for it to at least imitate a sense of prosperity, with the account for it as a philosophical stepping stone, or also here a universally behemoth key to more than one gate of zenith above in the horizons, and of course with much more implausible or unbelievable facts to the treasure, or tons of clues to many buried apart valuable and mainly oblivious truths. And truths by this far is yet to be more deepened in the second part of the Geopolitics in Philosophy. Next time, folks. Hopefully, really hopefully I've been clear enough concerning my point of view of this big taradiddle or lie that's also highly credible and credulous, judging from these scary picture story of absolute satisfaction we live in today. More to come next time. Great. This is pretty much to wrap up this Geopolitics in Philosophy part 1. Until next time of part 2, folks, join us with your ideas, English language fanatics with philosophical calibers concerning your very opinion on this one, or just politics in general, guys. And this very little piece of originality of mine, in case you haven't been interested, please go ahead and check it out. It's one hell of a read. It's so complex, but please, it'll teach you a lot. For the moment, join us so we can create a humongous community of creative writing and critical thinking, all put together in philosophy. Any one of you, I welcome all your comments and that of crazy ones too. Subscribe to the channel, make sure you hit thumbs up and share too for more madness and craziness around the way. And on your way they're coming. Of these originality articles are to be examined and explained and expounded even more. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll catch up next time of this video sequel. It's been an episode of the ProbityBLS articles turn discussion. Have a good and goodbye.